The Pittsburgh Penguins finally, and I mean finally, got their man. I am Dan Kingerski on this edition of the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and National Hockey Now YouTube channels live chat. Do me a favor before we continue. Like, subscribe, share, sing the praises, or if you criticize us, you always have to give a reason. That's how we roll here. So obviously the big news on Thursday. I had to think of the day of the week. I apologize. The big news on Thursday, of course, it came at exactly 10:30. The Penguins announced that Kyle Dubas was joining the organization, but not as the GM. Instead, they were making him the president of hockey operations. Now, it's kind of funny. My phone started blowing up at like 10:26. The word must have spread like white smoke at the Vatican all around PPG, like immediately. Because 4 minutes later, the Penguins press release comes out. You know, I was like, okay, like they're announcing it. I'm like, okay, everyone relax. They got their man, Kyle Dubas. And now, I think, I was on KDKA AM in the morning. I did a podcast with Chris Mack on 93.7 The Fan. I'll be jumping on Paul Zeiss on 93.7 The Fan Thursday evening. I've been on Toronto radio, Winnipeg radio, someplace I have no idea where the hell they are. I've written 4 stories on this. If you really want to know my opinions, you can read them. But I think these video chats are fun. These Penguins live chats are fun. So I put out the word on Twitter. We're doing another chat. I guess this isn't really a live chat. Well, I mean, I'm live and still alive, despite spending 5 of the last 6 weeks of my life in Las Vegas. We're going to do a little Q&A here. So I've got 8 questions queued up. I think there are 8. And here we go. This one comes from Aaron. Will Dubas make any cuts to the Penguins? Coaching, scouting, development staff, and why won't it be Reardon? Aaron, I don't expect any cuts. Kyle Dubas actually mentioned, briefly meeting with the Penguins analytics department, basically on his way to the press conference on Thursday. Wait, was it Thursday morning your time or Thursday morning my time? It was like 12:30 Pittsburgh time. So yeah, it was like 9:30 my time, I think. No, he's like, FSG has promised full boat and resources to expand where necessary. I don't expect any cuts. Now, if you're talking about removing people, it's kind of a standard practice that a GM is going to bring in a lot of scouts that he's comfortable with and add to the existing staff. Now, what Hextall did was basically just crony out the scouting department from, whether they are talented or not. I really don't know, but they were all Hextall people and very close to Hextall, from Kerry Hoffman and Chris Pryor's son, and even his son was tangentially a part of the scouting department, I believe. So if they make any changes, it will be kind of removing the last vestiges of Hextall, Burke, Pryor, and installing a new scouting department. I don't know that Todd Reardon is... I'm not sure how to read your tweet there, Aaron. Is Todd Reardon in trouble? Is that what you're saying? I do think that the power play could use a wholehearted revamp, if that's what you're talking about. And I'm talking scrub the floors, steam clean, power wash the Penguins' power play. It was brutal last year. I know Mike Sullivan said in expected chances they were top 10 or what. It's about goals, 1. And 2, anybody with an eye test realized how many chances they didn't convert on and how many times they gave away momentum because the power play would have been so stagnant or unproductive. Yeah, they got some goals. But when they were bad, my gosh, they were awful. So I don't think Reardon would be in trouble, but I definitely think he would have to answer some questions from a new GM, and probably Mike Sullivan as well. Like, hey, what changes do you have in store? Because whatever you're doing last year didn't work. Let's go to PM. Does Jason Spezza join the staff, and under what role? Spezza, if you don't know, was an underling can be kind of construed negatively, but he was an underling of Kyle Dubas, and I don't mean that negatively. He, from the short time from his playing days to, he retired last year? This would have been his first year or second year? First year, right? Retired, and he immediately joined the front office. So he doesn't have a lot of experience. He would be too green to become a GM, but he would not be too green to become, say, an assistant GM or something in player personnel, like director of player personnel or something along those lines. Spezza is an intelligent guy, good hockey IQ. He quit the day after Shanahan fired Dubas in Toronto. A little bit of a protest vote there, maybe. Let's see here. From Zach. Which one is more likely to play out for the Penguins next year? Todd Bertuzzi or William Nylander? More likely, it's Bertuzzi. It's fun to think about, isn't it? All of a sudden, the world is the Penguins' oyster again with Kyle Dubas. I don't think that Nylander will be traded out of Toronto. I think they will move heaven and earth to deal John Tavares. There are enough teams out there, say Columbus, who need a number one center or something close to it, right? And look, if Toronto will eat a few $1 million or a couple $1 million, Tavares has a couple years left. I mean, at a slightly discounted rate, yeah, I'd take that. I'd take that in a heartbeat. So I'm going to assume Toronto deals Tavares, not Nylander. I mean, you don't give up a player like Nylander. And even if Toronto were to make him available, the GM there, the guy from Calgary, work with me here, Brad Treliving. Even if he were to make him available, the Penguins couldn't afford him. So Tyler Bertuzzi, on the other hand, will be a UFA. And if the Penguins clear some space, they could certainly afford him. In fact, they could almost afford him now, because I think he might cost about $7 million. And Jason Zucker was making 5.5. So right there's your money, or a lot of it anyway. Let's see here. Brian says, has DeSmith's trade value gone up at all? Probably. He had a pretty good World Championships, Brian. But why would you trade a backup goalie who's been serviceable? I mean, look, the last 2 years he's had a down first half, and I forget who I said this to, which might have been Paul Zeiss on KDKA AM Thursday morning. Sometimes familiarity breeds contempt even amongst fans. And so I think that's the case with Casey DeSmith, where familiarity, you see his clunkers. You don't see the other good games. And overall, especially in the second half, he really elevated his game to the point where he was kind of a 1A goalie. And he cost $1.8 million. To keep that in perspective, the Vegas Golden Knights have 4 goalies. Except for their minor league guy, who was called up in an emergency, or called up in a pinch. Except for their minor league guy, all of their goalies make $2 million plus. That's Laurent Brossoit, who was a third goalie. That's Aiden Hill, signed as like a third goalie. So put that in perspective now. Casey DeSmith is cheap. Now, as some of you may be going, wait a second, Dan, you're right. Before the trade deadline, February especially, I wrote about Adin Hill a couple of times. I was telling the Vegas Golden Knights people, media, not the actual hockey ops, that Adin Hill was going to be their guy. And they're like, Brassard's going to, So I look pretty smart on that one. Adin Hill's probably going to might win a Stanley Cup here in a couple of weeks, which is going to put him out of the Penguins range, by the way. You're not going to give Adin Hill $5 million, and someone's going to probably give him $4 million. That seems to be the going rate, right? For like a 1A goalie, or the first half of a 1A tandem, 3 to 4. And I don't know that Adin Hill is quite worth that much, but it's, if you're talking about the Smith and trade value, yeah. First of all, his Team USA performance was pretty good. Second of all, he makes peanuts, comparatively speaking. So if they want to trade him, I think they'll have a market. But I don't think they want to trade him. Why would you give up an asset that you need that costs less than you expect to pay? Let's see here. Unemployed NHL GM. He's got like 3 followers, so it actually might be a GM. Why do you shill for Mike Sullivan? Why are you obstinately stupid? From Chris, says, first restaurant the Dubas family should eat at in Pittsburgh. Now, knowing that Kyle Dubas has a 6-year-old Leo, same name as my grandson, so I was like, oh, cool. And a 2-year-old, I don't think they're going to have the bone marrow at Meat and Potatoes, which was an old Mike Johnston favorite. I think we're going somewhere with chicken tenders and cheeseburgers. By the way, cheeseburgers and chicken tenders and fast food in Canada is dry and bland and flavorless. And I'm sorry, Pizza. I'm sorry, Swiss Chalet. No good. I'm sorry. No, can't do it. Because they actually have I'm told that they have to have lower fat content in Canada. By the way, if you need a reason to hate socialism, there's one. If I'm going to eat fast food, damn it, I want it to be good. I can spend $15 on a salad or something. When I go fast food, I want it to taste good. Clog my arteries, make me smile. So we're going somewhere with chicken tenders, cheeseburgers, French fries. First restaurant in Pittsburgh that fits that bill. I don't eat that stuff. So maybe you're going to Burgatory. How's that? Maybe you go to Burgatory. There's always Fly-By Chicken, which is in the Federal Galley. They'll do some chicken tenders for you. You can get a little flatbread pizza down the galley there. My buddy Troy Beck is like, hey, me. So there you go. Dubas family, head to the Federal Galley and get some... The Truffalo chicken, I love. Might be a little intense for a 6-year-old, though. Just stick with the chicken tenders. Let's see here. I think there were a couple more that came in, actually, as I was recording. Why do you shill for Mike Sullivan? What kind of moron writes in that? I mean, how many hockey people have to sing this guy's praises before some people stop being just obstinate? I want a clean sweep, and damn it, anybody who tells me I'm wrong is a shill. You can tell my patience. I mean, I don't suffer fools well, but my patience is shot. We've got 20 National Hockey Now markets. We've expanded, we've doubled our size in the last month. And we're doing a lot of things financially. And I'm writing for I'm covering the Golden Knights Cup run. I'm doing Pittsburgh. And some Schmuckeldorf wants to pick at me. You're just getting the horns, dumbass. Okay. If not Jarry, this is from Steve, if not Jarry, who you like to see the Pens try to get? Now, Steve used all capital letters, so I wouldn't overlook his, and I appreciate that, Steve. It really depends. As Kyle Dubas mentioned on Thursday, trade or free agency or trade. I do think you pick up the phone and you call the Winnipeg Jets and you find out exactly what they want. I do think you pick up the phone again and call the Anaheim Ducks now. They didn't get Connor Bedard. Maybe having the second overall pick changes their calculus in terms of their rebuild. I don't know. Perhaps in terms of trade, the only other option really would be Boston. If you wanted to acquire the rights to Jeremy Swayman. Given how the season ended, and there was some real rancor with Linus Ullmark in Boston. They weren't entirely happy. What is that up in the corner of my screen there? It looks like a ghost, doesn't it? I think it's a reflection of my suitcase in the window with the clouds. Kind of looks like a ghost. Anywho, there was some rancor with Linus Ullmark in Boston, and he kind of upset some people. Was he injured? Was he not injured? He was playing kind of cat and mouse with the media, and I know it kind of even upset some of his teammates. Like, they were like, man, just, be straight. So maybe Linus Ullmark, who will win the Vezina, could be available. And there is a guy whose trade value I would be very curious, because he's going to win the Vezina this year. But until this year, he was really not thought of as an NHL or as a proven NHL goalie. Let me phrase it that way. He was a shot in the dark with Boston because he really didn't pan out in Buffalo. Look, Buffalo's goalie starved, and they let him walk it. So there's just off the top of my head. In terms of free agency, you do have Aiden Hill. You've got Freddie Anderson, who probably wants to go back to Carolina. You've got Antti Ranta. You've Semyon Varlamov. Probably goes back to the Islanders as well. I think that's where we go. So who else might be available? I'm just rolling through here in my head as fast as possible. Jonas Korpisalo, who had actually a pretty decent run at the end with the LA Kings. You would think they'd probably pay him, not big money, but smaller money, at least capable NHL goalie money, because he really was pretty good. I'm going through the NHL as fast as I can for you, Steve. I think that's all that's really springing to mind. I'm sure they could get like Jack Campbell out of Edmonton, but that's going to cost you, unless Edmonton wants to do a Granlund for Campbell sort of trade. And even then, I'm not sure that benefits the Penguins. Why did Dubas, this is from Party Hard Penguins, why did Dubas make me feel promise for the future of this franchise? Why? Because he's going to bring a fresh approach. He's not going to acquire 35-year-old guys and give them multiple-year contracts. He's going to do things differently. And in that difference, you can choose to see it. Look, you can choose to see the fact that, here's what I like about Dubas, first of all, is because he's a smart guy. I mean, he's a sharp cookie. Began as a scout at 17, was the GM of Sault Ste. Marie at 25. Quickly to Toronto, his Marlies won the Calder Cup. As the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he assembled quite a roster. I mean, he used the LTIR in a way that really wasn't intended. When he started acquiring contracts, like remember when he traded for Nathan Horton? Everyone's like, you can't do that. He's like, oh yeah, I can. Because Nathan Horton was on LTIR permanently. And, to that point, the Arizona Coyotes had cornered the market on acquiring these finished veterans under contract so they could meet the salary cap floor and let insurance pay the money, pay the salary, rather than them. So even that was kind of looked at, as a legal circumvention, but not really how the rule was intended. And then here comes Dubas. When did he sign Marner? 18, 19? To that contract, 19, 20, whatever it was. When you get to this point, covering hockey for 20 years, it all just becomes a big gelatinous mass. There's a beginning and there'll be an end, but what date anything happened, I have no idea. He acquired a bunch of several players like Nathan Horton who were never going to play again in order to put them on LTIR. Now, by doing that, he also got draft picks. These teams wanted to dump these LTIR players, so he picked up additional draft picks in doing this and then got to exceed the salary cap by the full 10% or so. It's pretty slick thinking. When his defense was 10-ply soft, he went out and got Jake Muzzin, Mark Giordano a couple of years later. When his forward group this year needed more grit, and you could tell they needed a bit more leadership. They had to build a team to compete with Tampa Bay behind them and Boston in front of them. Look, no one saw the Florida Panthers' ridiculous run coming, and if Sergei Bobrovsky doesn't stand on his head, Toronto is playing Carolina for the Eastern Conference Final, or in the Eastern Conference Final. But anyway, he goes out and gets Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari. So you tell me where that was bad. Now, people are like, oh, he gave bad contracts. 5 years ago, he signed John Tavares to a full boat deal. He kind of had to. At that time, Tavares was seen as the adult in the room with Auston Matthews, Nylander, Mitch Marner, on down the line. And that was like, I sure as hell don't remember many people criticizing him on that day. Now, of course, 5 years later, everyone's a 2020 expert. And, well, they shouldn't have really done that. In my considered opinion, they overpaid for him. And now it's like, shut up. You didn't say that then. You don't get to say it now. Tavares was a good signing at the time. And quite frankly, Kyle Dubas' biggest regret or shortcoming as the Maple Leafs GM would be in goal, where he failed to fill the pipes. I thought Frederick Anderson would become that guy, but he was always just short. Anderson is a soft goal at the wrong time guy. He will be great for 58 minutes in a playoff game, and there's that one. So that's where and this year, I think the Matt Murray, Ilya Samsonov tandem was predictably bad for them. For whatever reason, Matt Murray just, he may have used up his last life in terms of being a regular in the NHL. Let's see here. Could we see a Matthews reunion in Pittsburgh? Auston Matthews party hard? No. Listen, when you get a 40-goal centerman, you don't give him up. Unless you get someone back in return. No, not possible. Let me scroll through here real quick. I've got some Vegas responses coming in too. That's kind of funny. Now I've got two cities. I think if I get any more, maybe I'll just put them in the print, because we're going to do two versions. We'll do the print version, and obviously this. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, well, what the hell are you waiting for? Please do so. I appreciate everyone's support through this insane time. I'm whinging and bragging at the same time that I didn't do the full count, but we are, give or take, I wrote 200 stories in May, give or take a couple on either side of that line. Most writers are going to write about 40 stories, maybe 50 in a given month. I wrote 200. I'm pretty proud of that. And living out here isn't always easy. I've become pretty immune to walking through a casino. Wednesday morning, I'm staying at the Luxor this week. I'm going back to my little hotel because these giant megalith casinos. You can't get in, you can't get out. They've got a front door, and it's like a roach trap. You turn around and the door is gone. Like, how do I get out? So you spend time just circling the damn place, looking for the same place you came in so you can get out the same way and go to where you're trying to get to. I've been here a week and I still can't easily navigate myself to New York, which is 2 hotels over. Luxor has a walkway. Actually, from Mandalay, there's a walkway, or paths anyway. I kid you not, at Luxor, go down to the first floor. You have to find the corner, swing around, and it's because Luxor being a pyramid, they actually have it catty corner, like diagonal. You would never see it if you didn't know it was there to get over to Excalibur. Now, once you're in Excalibur, you're actually up on the second floor. You don't realize it because it looks like you're on the first floor. You come upon these restaurants with an escalator. You go down the escalator. You're looking for an exit sign to go to New York, right? There isn't one. It tells you how to get back to the Luxor. It tells you where the sports book is. It tells you where the restaurants are. There is not a sign that tells you New York this way. Now, to get to T-Mobile Arena from here, I have to also go across Route 15, which takes you from Excalibur into New York. Now, once we get to New York, you have to go down the escalator once again. There's a circular bar that looks the same from all sides, and you can't see really beyond the circular bar. So you have to guess where you're at. And it's a nightmare. Drives me. My little hotel, Oyo, the old Hooters. You'd think, oh boy, that's scary. And it was just nice. Elevator down to the first floor, walk straight out, walk 50 yards up to the strip, cross over the boulevard, and I'm at T-Mobile. It's like, I kind of miss that, but I'm immune to the casinos at this point, the blights, the everything. Although I was approached last night to see a woman asked me if I wanted a date. I don't think she was asking for dinner. I declined, But anyway, that's it. That's about 30 off the cuff here from Las Vegas, covering the Stanley Cup Final for National Hockey Now and covering the Pittsburgh Penguins for Pittsburgh Hockey Now. I'm Dan Kingerski. We'll do it all again real soon. Have fun, kids.